But first, the climate media wars. I've shown you before how the tragic bushfire season has been used cynically by climate activists and politicians to promote their climate policies. Now, green left activists and media organisations have shown the same shameless opportunism to vent against News Corp media, including this channel. Just as they have been for generations, far-left activists are paranoid and obsessive about Rupert Murdoch's media interests. Have a look at Al Jazeera last month.
Throw in Murdoch's close ties to Australia's powerful fossil fuel lobby, and all of the elements are there for a conspiracy of disinformation on the biggest, gravest story of our time.
The gravest story of our time. He's not underselling his yarn, is he? Yet there's no explanation or examination of these so-called fossil fuel links, something Al Jazeera, by the way, ought to know a bit about, given it was founded and funded on the limitless petrodollars of the Emir of Qatar. But forget oil and gas-rich Emirates. Al Jazeera thinks Murdoch rules the world.
Skepticism is noticeably higher in the US, Australia, and the UK, which happen to be Rupert Murdoch's biggest markets. There's a clear pattern there that is undeniable.
Wow, that is some control they attribute to News Corp. You don't think if Rupert Murdoch and his staff had such incredible control over people's attitudes and actions, they might use that power to convince them to subscribe to Sky or subscribe to their newspapers? Nope, apparently News Corp would rather destroy the planet. I suppose this nonsense is a handy distraction for Qatar as it competes with Australia to be the world's largest gas exporter.
Taking in the coverage in Rupert Murdoch's Australian media outlets of the historic, devastating wildfires and the climate change angle can be confusing. That is by design.
Does climate change cause these fires? No.
Gone are the days of hardcore denial of climate change, disputing that the planet is overheating. What the Murdoch media now specialise in is climate skepticism, denial, taken down a notch or two.
I agree that the climate is changing. It's been changing for billions of years.
Arguments that pin the cause of the wildfires on anything but global warming.
Lightning strikes and arson are overwhelmingly the triggers for bushfires in this country.
Yeah, how dare anyone actually mention how the fires start? This Al Jazeera piece is full of drama, ominous music and wild claims. It insinuates that comments from Peter Credlin, Andrew Bold and me and others are wrong. But the story doesn't expose factual errors or refute any claims because they can't. It's weak. They infer inaccuracy without following through. They just don't like the vibe of the thing. The story used green left critics from Australia like Richard Cook, who finds a global conspiracy in the strangest of places.
Like Chris Kenny, who openly campaigns for Liberal Party candidates while he's the associate editor of The Australian.
How desperate are they to run this tripe? It hinges on this photo that I posted on social media when proudly handing out how to vote cards for my sister in a South Australian state election campaign 2 years ago. It's a pity there weren't enough petrodollars or media manipulation to get her across the line. Seriously, Cook's global conspiracy seems to be failing at the local level. The Al Jazeera piece criticised News Corp for airing the views of prominent climate skeptic, geologist and author Ian Plimer. So, distilled down, their complaint is not about homogenous views, but that we are prepared to air divergent views. But the story did make one attempt at demonstrating some false News Corp reporting.
We had some crazy theories about how it was all to do with clearing land for high-speed rail and that they wanted to burn this much land so that we could get cheap property for the trains. It was kind of insane to watch it unfold when you had authority figure after authority figure, scientist after scientist, firefighter after firefighter saying, we have never seen fires of this intensity before. This is not business as usual. But we saw those theories really take hold, some of which was published in the Murdoch papers.
The trouble for Al Jazeera and their Guardian co-conspirator is that we could find only one story on this issue. And it was this news.com.au piece drawing attention to the bizarre global conspiracy theories being run on social media. A storyful investigation with news.com.au has found the conspiracy theory has spread far and wide on social media, said the report, before going on to say that while Facebook has moved to crack down on misinformation around some topics, such as vaccinations, there appears to be little stopping the spread of conspiracy theories surrounding bushfires on the platform. So News Corp exposed this nonsense and questioned why it hadn't been pulled down, precisely the opposite of the allegation from Al Jazeera and The Guardian. With the Green Left around the world using Australia's bushfires as Exhibit 1 for dangerous global warming, there was an appetite for this sort of nuttiness in America's left-of-centre papers. Cook presumed to offer a two-part warning for the US, and the world for that matter, in the pages of the Washington Post. One is the dominating presence of Rupert Murdoch in the country's media. The other is the catastrophic effects of climate change, showcased by the massive fires that have ravaged the Australian bush for months. The relationship between these phenomena will help decide not just the future of one nation, but also the future of the world. That's right. He said the fate of the world is in the hands of Rupert Murdoch, and those of us who work for him, I suppose. Not much pressure on us. The New York Times ran a piece along similar lines by Damien Cave. Again, there is lots of anti-News Corp rhetoric and the suggestion that some journalists and commentators are not towing the alarmist line. But again, they fail to detail a factual error. Why is this so hard? I'm certain I could find one. Instead, they quote climate scientist and global warming activist Joël Georges talking about News Corp coverage. It's really reckless and extremely harmful, she says. It's insidious because it grows. Once you plant those seeds of doubt, it stops an important conversation from taking place. But hang on, doesn't that name sound familiar? Yeah, talking about facts and stuff, Georges is an activist we caught out last year making incorrect claims about bushfires and climate change. Remember, she was writing for The Guardian under the headline, "I never thought I'd see the Australian rainforest burning. What will it take for us to wake up to the climate crisis?" She went on to say, as a scientist, what I find particularly disturbing about the current conditions is that World Heritage rainforest areas, such as the Lamington National Park in the Gold Coast hinterland, are now burning. But we demonstrated that Lamington's rainforest had burned before, at least once since European settlement, and long before global warming kicked in. The Cairns Post of the 25th of October 1951 said a bushfire in Lamington National Park today swept through a grove of 3,000-year-old palms. These trees were one of the features of the park. The fire has burnt out about 2,000 acres of thick rainforest country. The same rainforest was ablaze almost 70 years ago. And Georges tells the New York Times that News Corp is misleading. It wouldn't be a malevolent News Corp theory, of course, without the public broadcasters piling in. And right on cue, the ABC found a disgruntled former science writer, Lee Dayton, who was made redundant at the Australian newspaper in 2012, apparently, and now tries to make a climate point.
I don't think I need to argue that the Oz has ramped up climate change denialism, especially in opinion pieces, since last September when the fire season began.
She said she didn't need to argue that point, but yes, you do need to argue. It's not good enough just to assert. You should have evidence and examples. If what you say is correct, it shouldn't be hard, even though, of course, the ABC didn't ask for it. And in Britain, the public broadcaster was all in on this stuff too. As I've shown before, the BBC's Ross Atkins has been running almost daily pieces on Australia's bushfires, pumping out the Green Left lines and misleading claims. Like Al Jazeera, The Guardian, the ABC and the others, he seems to resent News Corp people sharing facts that the Green Left choose to ignore or censor.
Here's News Corp columnist Andrew Bolt speaking on his programme on the Murdoch-owned Sky News Australia.
This drought, it's not caused by global warming, nor are the bushfires, nor will it help at all with bushfires to cut emissions.
If Atkins believes any of that was wrong, surely he would forensically pull it apart. But no, again, He just doesn't like the vibe. Terrible News Corp people injecting facts and perspective into the conversation, hey? Even open disagreement and healthy debate is not good enough for them.
Rupert Murdoch's son, James Murdoch, sits on the News Corp board. A spokesperson for him and his wife, Catherine, says Catherine and James's views on climate are well established and their frustration with some of the News Corp and Fox coverage of the topic is well known. It goes on, they are particularly disappointed with the ongoing denial among the news outlets in Australia, given obvious evidence to the contrary.
I get frustrated by some of the coverage too. What is the BBC claim then? That there is only one News Corp view, or that there are many? That everyone is saying what they are told to say, or that they're thinking for themselves? Healthy debate, divergent views, fact-based arguments and creative tensions seem all a bit too hard to comprehend from the political monoculture of a public broadcaster. Like other critics, Atkins' ideology seems to get the better of his capacity for reason.
What we can be sure of is that commentators seeking to distance these fires and climate change are being given space, and climate scientists are being absolutely clear in saying the broader pattern of climate change does increase the risk of extreme bushfires.
First, commentators get space in this organisation, not space for certain views, just time on air like this or space in the newspaper to share the facts and arguments they choose. And they vary. Otherwise, I'd be in constant agreement with, say, Andrew Bolt, Peter Van Onselen, Peter Credlin, Alan Jones, Nikki Sava, Paul Murray and Sharry Markson, and I could go on. I challenge you to find one thing, one issue all of us agree on. But on Atkins' final point, this gets to the essence of the argument. We all know that climate scientists say that global warming will increase the number of high-risk fire days in southeastern Australia. That's an entirely different proposition to falsely claiming these are the worst conditions we've faced, or the worst fires the nation has faced, or indeed that, as horrible as this season has been, it represents a paradigm shift. That flies in the face of scientific advice about the critical factor, the drought, not being directly attributable to climate change. This is the most devastating fire season on record in New South Wales. That is bad enough and tragic enough. It's enough for climate activists to warn this threat that we've always known can only get worse with global warming. But it's quite another thing to say this has been caused by warming, or that anything Australia can do on emissions policy can change that, or for that matter, whether even concerted global action can ever stop catastrophic fire conditions happening in a land that has actually been shaped by them over millennia. And it's piling paranoia onto alarmism to pretend that robust, factual and diverse coverage and commentary in some media is sinister and unwarranted. What these critics are really demonstrating is that the public broadcasters and other green left media are presenting only one view, only one perspective on what is a complex and contestable scientific and policy realm. It's mainly in News Corp media you get not only alarmism, but you get alarmism challenged and policy options debated, and issues such as temperature record homogenisation or climate model failure or the benefits of warming even raised. The Green left want to silence dissent, debate, complexities and nuance. It's the opposite of journalistic inquiry. And last year, even the head of the World Meteorological Organisation, a UN body, Petteri Talas, said extremism and alarmism was the problem in the debate. While climate scepticism has become less of an issue, now we are being challenged from the other side, he said. Climate experts have been attacked by these people and they claim that we should be much more radical. They are doomsters and extremists. They make threats, Talas said. Yet shutting down debate is not the answer. The problem clearly is not a monoculture in News Corp where reporting, opinion and debate is lively and multifaceted. The problem is in the green left media where there is only one view. There is only emotive alarmism, a complete lack of perspective and balance, and no focus on debating practical policy responses.